When we first discovered the Titanic, I was not allowed to tell the true story. They were in their cabin. These were people.
These were people. Those shoes got to the bottom.
When an unmanned deep-sea drone descended toward the Titanic in 2025, the operation was expected to be nothing more than a standard survey. But just moments into the descent, its instruments began recording something impossible. A repeating signal, pulsing from deep within the wreck itself. Not random noise, not shifting currents. A consistent rhythm, almost mechanical in nature. As the footage streamed to the surface, the control room went silent. After more than 113 years on the ocean floor, the Titanic wasn't as lifeless as everyone believed. What the drone revealed next left experts shaken, raising one disturbing question. What could still be active inside a ship that should be long dead? Subscribe for more real discoveries and unexplained mysteries. The drone that changed everything. In early 2025, a team of scientists gathered on the deck of the research vessel Alethea, surrounded by freezing mist and the dark waves of the North Atlantic. They were part of Project Abyssal Echo, a collaboration between oceanographers, engineers, and AI researchers determined to capture the clearest images ever taken of the Titanic. The expedition was supposed to be routine, but nobody expected what came next. At the center of their operation was Nereus X, a new underwater drone unlike anything used before. It was built from pressure-resistant titanium and equipped with AI that could think for itself when navigating unpredictable terrain. Its sensors were sensitive enough to detect vibrations smaller than a human heartbeat. The goal was simple. The team wanted to build a complete 3D map of the Titanic's decaying structure to study how the wreck was collapsing. The first descent went smoothly. The drone moved silently through the darkness, sending back crystal-clear images of rusted corridors and fallen beams. Then, halfway through the second dive, something changed. The sonar started showing rhythmic pulses deep inside the stern section of the ship. The pulses came exactly every 3 seconds. At first, the control room assumed it was background noise or a reflection of the drone's own signal. But when the same pattern kept repeating for 9 straight hours, the mood shifted from calm to uneasy. Technicians tried recalibrating the sonar, but the readings remained identical. The signal wasn't random. It wasn't coming from the water. It was coming from inside the Titanic. When they played the sound through the speakers, it wasn't static or feedback. It was a steady, soft thump, like a heartbeat echoing through metal. One of the engineers removed his headset and whispered, "It's like something alive is down there." No one laughed. The room went quiet, except for the drone's faint audio feed. Every pair of eyes stared at the monitor, where green waves on the screen rose and fell in perfect rhythm. The drone's AI recalculated its route and began moving toward the source. As it descended deeper, its lights cut through a cloud of silt, revealing dark passageways that no human had ever seen. The scientists knew the Titanic was fragile. Even small vibrations could cause walls to collapse. Every meter forward increased the risk of losing the drone forever. Still, they couldn't look away. Something inside that ship was moving, and they had to know what it was. By the time Nereus X reached the stern corridor, the air on the ship had changed. The crew wasn't talking anymore. They were just watching, frozen in a mix of fear and fascination. What had started as a routine data-gathering mission slowly transformed into a chilling and deeply unsettling confrontation with the ship's forgotten past. Guided carefully by its onboard AI, Nereus X moved forward at a cautious pace, tracing the precise origin of the strange sound. It drifted through warped metal and floating debris until its lights finally illuminated a sealed door, one that had never been opened by any human or machine before. The team would later give it a name that sent a quiet shiver through the control room: the Forbidden Chamber. Not a single person spoke as the Nereus X drone followed the signal's pattern through the wreckage. The signal was pulling it toward the stern, close to the officers' quarters, a section of the ship that had been completely sealed off by collapsed metal since the original 1985 expedition. This was an area no diver, probe, or camera had ever reached. Every member of the team stared at their screens, tense, focused, and barely breathing. If the drone's lights failed or its frame became trapped, Nereus X would be lost forever. As it moved forward, its sonar began to outline what appeared to be a large, intact structure. The image sharpened and revealed a solid metal doorway. Unlike the surrounding wreck, which had been eaten away by rust and time, this door still looked remarkably strong. Its surface was coated with thick manganese oxide, yet its form remained perfectly preserved. The operators zoomed in, carefully checking pressure readings. The chamber behind the door appeared to be airtight. No one could explain how that was even possible after more than a century beneath the ocean. The mission lead finally gave the order to proceed. The drone extended its mechanical arm and pressed against the brass handle. To everyone's shock, the handle moved. A loud metallic creak echoed through the chamber as the door slowly began to open. Beyond it lay a dark emptiness that swallowed the drone's floodlight. When the camera adjusted, the live feed revealed something none of them were prepared to see. A human skeleton sat upright in a chair at the center of the chamber. The bones were fully intact. The jaw hung open, and the skull leaned forward, as if frozen in the middle of drawing a breath. For a brief moment, the scene was so perfectly preserved that the crew thought it might be a mannequin or a staged artifact. Then someone noticed the finer details. Tattered scraps of fabric still clung to the bones. A single boot rested beneath the chair, and in the figure's right hand was a gold pocket watch. The watch showed no signs of corrosion. It reflected the drone's light, and its glass face was perfectly clear. The lead technician leaned closer to the screen. The second hand on the watch was moving. It was ticking. The control room erupted into disbelief. Some insisted it had to be a visual error. Others immediately ran system diagnostics, but the drone's vibration sensors detected a steady oscillation coming from the object. It was mechanical motion with no visible power source. Temperature readings showed the chamber was slightly warmer than the surrounding wreck. Condensation formed and faded rhythmically along the wall, perfectly in sync with the ticking sound. Every person in the room froze. A few stepped back from the monitors. One researcher whispered, "That's not possible." The captain ordered them to continue recording. They all understood the weight of what they were witnessing. The Titanic had been silent for over 100 years, yet something inside it was still alive with motion. Once the footage reached land, researchers began comparing the chamber's location with historical expedition maps. What they uncovered tied the discovery to a section of the ship that even Robert Ballard had never publicly discussed. Ballard's Secret Returns. Robert Ballard, the oceanographer who first discovered the Titanic in 1985, had become a legend in deep-sea exploration. However, as scientists dug deeper, they realized Ballard's expedition records were not as complete as history had led people to believe. When data from Nereus X was compared with Ballard's original charts, something deeply unsettling emerged. Several coordinates from the 1985 maps were missing. Entire portions of the stern, including the precise area where the drone had uncovered the sealed chamber, had been deliberately left blank. At first, some team members assumed it was nothing more than a minor technical flaw caused by aging equipment or corrupted data. But that explanation quickly fell apart when they noticed sharp, unnatural breaks in the sonar lines, as if entire sections had been intentionally removed. A few hours later, one researcher uncovered a digital recording of a rare interview Robert Ballard had given many years earlier. In that interview, he quietly stated, "Some things were too human to show." At the time, most people brushed it off as a vague reference to the remains of victims. Now, in the shadow of this new discovery, those words carried a far more unsettling meaning. The crew exchanged nervous, uneasy glances. One voice broke the silence in a whisper. What did he really see down there? As historians joined the review team, they began uncovering even more disturbing details. Ballard's personal notebooks, preserved in a naval archive, contained a brief but deeply troubling entry. It described an intact cabin exhibiting what he called mechanical resonance. That phrase had never appeared in any official report or public record. The notebook entry was dated just 2 days before Ballard's public announcement of the Titanic's discovery. None of the scientists from his original expedition had ever mentioned anything like it. Visibly shaken, the mission leader requested that all surviving members of Ballard's 1985 crew be contacted. 2 former technicians eventually agreed to speak. Both confirmed that following the Titanic's discovery, the U.S. Navy conducted a series of closed-door briefings. They said Ballard had been instructed to stop exploring a specific section of the wreck. One technician recalled Ballard arguing heatedly with military officials over the decision. Another remembered Ballard returning to the ship pale, shaken, and unwilling to describe what he had just witnessed. The 2025 team remained gathered in the monitor room late into the night, eyes locked on the sonar images of the sealed chamber. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Some crew members refused to speak at all. Others quietly suggested that Ballard's silence had never been about honoring the dead. They believed he had been forced to conceal something he discovered, something inside the ship that was still active. Years earlier, a retired member of the original expedition had told a journalist, "He didn't find a grave. He found something that shouldn't have been working." That statement spread through the 2025 crew like an icy wave. Determined to understand what Ballard might have seen, the team began reanalyzing the drone footage frame by frame, desperate to uncover the source behind the impossible movement that simply refused to stop. Evidence of motion. Every eye remained fixed on the monitors displaying the sealed chamber, and the gold watch clenched in the skeletal hand. No one spoke. The steady ticking coming through the speakers was impossible to dismiss. It wasn't static. It wasn't random noise. It sounded deliberate, as if a mechanical system was still functioning deep within the Titanic. To verify what they were hearing, technicians slowed the footage frame by frame. What appeared next left the entire crew stunned into silence. The watch's internal balance wheel was clearly visible, moving back and forth in flawless rhythm. This was no lighting illusion or camera distortion. It was genuine mechanical oscillation, the same precise motion used in 19th century marine chronometers designed to keep accurate time at sea. The movement followed a strict mathematical pattern, unwavering and exact. The lead engineer explained that for a watch to function in that way, it would require a continuous power source or an ongoing chemical reaction. Neither should have been possible at that depth. There was no oxygen, no battery, and no sunlight. Every component should have corroded beyond recognition decades ago. Yet the watch continued to tick, as if it had been wound only hours earlier. The team replayed the footage again and again. Each time, the same flawless pattern appeared. Slowly, the mood aboard the vessel shifted from scientific fascination to raw fear. Several crew members quietly admitted they didn't want to keep watching anymore. Scientists immediately began offering possible explanations for what they were seeing. The first theory suggested that a sealed chemical reaction inside the chamber might be producing just enough energy to drive the mechanism. The temperature difference between the trapped air pocket and the surrounding icy seawater could create slow thermal expansion and contraction, potentially imitating the movement of a clock. Another idea proposed that the watch could be responding to faint magnetic currents still lingering within the Titanic's massive iron hull. Even after more than a century underwater, the ship's metal structure retained traces of Earth's magnetic field, which might influence delicate metallic components and cause small, repeating motions. A third explanation focused on a specific type of bacteria known as Halomonas titanicae. These microorganisms feed on iron and are responsible for forming rusticles, structures that expand and contract as they grow. This growth happens in cycles, and those cycles can generate subtle vibrations. Some experts theorize that colonies of this bacteria might be living inside the watch itself, causing the steady back-and-forth movement that made it appear as though the timepiece was still functioning. The team continued analyzing the footage well into the night. While reviewing the audio recordings, one sound engineer noticed something unusual. Beneath the ticking was a low-frequency hum that followed the same rhythmic pattern. It wasn't purely mechanical. It sounded more like a pulse. When the drone performed another sonar sweep, the tone shifted slightly, almost as if the sound were reacting to the signal being sent toward it. That small change sent a wave of panic through the control room. The sonar operator pulled off his headset, saying his ears were ringing. Another technician claimed she could hear faint clicking beneath the pulse, as if something inside the wreck was responding. The mission leader immediately ordered a full systems check to rule out exhaustion, stress, or hallucinations. Every system came back normal. The readings were genuine. The scientists couldn't reach a consensus on what they were witnessing. Some insisted it was nothing more than resonance, a harmless vibration created by overlapping frequencies. Others believed it was proof that a self-contained mechanism within the ship was still active. No one was willing to draw a final conclusion. The silence that followed was heavier and more uncomfortable than before. All eyes remained fixed on the screen as the watch continued to tick, one steady beat at a time. The mood among the crew slowly shifted from curiosity to dread. Whatever was moving inside the Titanic had been doing so for over 100 years, and no one could explain how or why. Desperate for answers, the investigators turned back to Robert Ballard's archived data from 1985, hoping that somewhere within those long-forgotten files there might be evidence of the same impossible motion. Ballard's hidden files. A group of investigative journalists soon contacted the expedition with startling information about Robert Ballard's original 1985 mission. The scientists gathered together as the message was read aloud. The documents, recently declassified by the United States Navy, revealed that Ballard's famous discovery of the Titanic had not been the primary objective of the mission. Instead, the main goal had been to locate and inspect two nuclear submarines lost during the Cold War. The Titanic expedition had served as a public cover story. No one aboard the Althea spoke for several long minutes. The realization that the historic discovery had been part of a classified military operation left the team stunned. Among the released documents were references to anomalous signal returns detected near the Titanic wreck during Ballard's expedition. Those records had been heavily blacked out for decades. The newly released files confirmed that the signals were real, yet they offered no explanation. They were simply labeled as unresolved data anomalies. That single phrase was enough to make the current team deeply uneasy. The leader of the 2025 mission slowly came to a disturbing realization. The rhythmic motion their drone was detecting might not be something new at all. It may have been observed 40 years earlier and deliberately kept from the public. Two former technicians from Ballard's original crew later agreed to speak with a journalist, but only under strict anonymity. Both described moments during the 1985 expedition when photographs and sonar recordings were quietly confiscated by naval officers. One of them clearly remembered hearing Ballard arguing with a Navy representative behind closed doors. When he was questioned about the incident afterward, Ballard reportedly said only, "It is better not to open every door." The new team began studying the declassified documents line by line. In one heavily redacted memo, a single uncensored sentence remained. "Non-geological vibration source detected in wreck cavity." Those words sent a cold chill through the control room. Every scientist understood the implication immediately. A vibration that was not geological did not come from shifting rock or movement in the seafloor. It meant something mechanical, something built by human hands, was active inside the Titanic. Some researchers on board started to believe that Ballard's crew had encountered the same motion and had been ordered to suppress the discovery. Others suspected the Navy may have mistaken the anomaly for an active Cold War device, possibly a signal beacon or surveillance system that had somehow ended up on the ocean floor. Either possibility suggested the truth had been buried under layers of secrecy for reasons tied to national security. As fragments of the story began to circulate, conspiracy theorists quickly seized on the new evidence. They claimed the Titanic had been transporting a hidden cargo disguised as luxury goods. Online forums exploded with speculation, suggesting that a prototype energy source or an advanced navigation system had been on board and was still partially operational. The team aboard the Althea avoided public statements, but in private, they were deeply shaken. The idea that the wreck might contain undisclosed technology completely reshaped everything they believed about the disaster. Late that night, the mission leader ordered yet another review of the drone footage. The scientists sat in tense silence, their faces illuminated by the cold glow of the monitors. Every few seconds, the same mechanical rhythm appeared on the screen. No one could explain how it was still functioning, but now they finally understood why Ballard had chosen silence. The truth had always been there, hidden beneath decades of secrecy. Thank you for watching. If this story made you question what we truly know about the past, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more unexplained discoveries, hidden histories, and mysteries that refuse to stay buried. Until next time, stay curious, and remember, not every door is meant to be opened.